Welcome back to another episode of the Kydrees Burks podcast. To start off this episode, I'm going to give you a little performance. Sultans of Swing. I should get a shiver in the dark. It's a raining in the park. And meantime, color in this river is stopping your whole everything. The band is blowing Dixie like a full time. Feel alright when you hear the music play. And now you step inside, but you don't see too many faces. Color in the rain and hear the jazz blow down. Competition and other places. Hey, but the horns keep blowing that sound. Way on down south. Way on down south, London town. Well, then you George. He knows all the chords. Money strictly rhythm, he doesn't want to make it cry or sing. He said an old guitar is all he can afford when he gets out under the lights to play his jam. With the Sultans, and Harry doesn't mind if he doesn't make the scene. He's got a daytime job. He's doing all right. And he can play the honky-tonk like anything. Saving it up for Friday night. With the Sultans. With the Sultans of Swing. Bam, bam, bam. Bam, bam, bam. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, ba-dum, ba, ba-dum. And then the man, he steps right up to the microphone. Sending the message as the time bell rang. Good night. Now it's time to go home. And he makes it fast with one more play. With the Sultans. We are the Sultans of Swing. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum. Ba-dum, bum. Bum, ba-dum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. Hopefully you enjoyed that introduction. That was something a little bit new uh, and fun. Hopefully you know that song. If you don't, check it out. Salt is a Swing. I don't know who it's by. Salt is a Swing. All right. But again, welcome back to another episode of the Kydrees Perks podcast. Today I'm feeling a little silly. Got a couple cups of coffee in me, and Now I'm on a roll. I do want to start by apologizing that this episode didn't come out on Sunday. I had a pretty packed weekend this weekend. I took a trip up to none other than the Swamp, which is Eaglesmere, Pennsylvania, and for for that festivity, I actually have a Eaglesmere tie on today. Little janky. It's like a neon green and some pink eagles. Let me fix this. I'm sorry. But yeah, I was up in Eaglesmere this past weekend. They had the toboggan slide going for the first time in 11 years, and it was a lot of fun. I got to see some friends that visit there over the weekend. They came up for the toboggan, and it was an absolute pleasure just to get up there, kind of forget about everything here at school, and have some fun with some friends. It's a great time. But today's topic is a topic that I'm pretty passionate about myself because it has greatly impacted my life. And if it wasn't for this thing, I wouldn't be here at Penn State. And that thing is mentorship. Mentorship means so much to me, and it can mean something different for everybody. But for me, my definition of mentorship is having somebody that you can look up to that is in a place of experience that you can talk to, get advice from. They may help you with something, but it's mentorship to me is solely advice based. So all of my mentors have given me some sort of advice. A lot of people see mentorship as something that a mentor gives you something physical, or like a mentor gives you money, or a mentor gives you this. That's not at all how I view it. I view it as purely a way of learning, a new, a different way of education, outside of your formal setting of school, right? So I will actually get into this topic by telling a story of meeting one of my greatest mentors of now. And that actually happened at Eaglesmere Country Club. So it all everything's working out here. So I worked at Eaglesmere Country Club about, well, it was the summer before high school, the summer before college, I mean. And one second, I'm gonna go grab a watch. I feel a little bit naked. I'm all put together. But I was working at Eaglesmere the summer before college, and I just worked as an outdoor bag kid, cleaned some clubs, put the bags away, gave the guys carts, just an all around outdoor operations kid. I had absolutely no experience in the golf industry, and I really didn't want to work in golf at the time. This was before I made the decision to get into the golf program, and this is before I even knew that I was going to be ending up at main campus the following fall. But my first ever interaction with now one of my biggest mentors, his name is Mark. I did the regular thing. Whenever he came up to the golf course to play some golf, he asked for a cart. And before I did anything, I reached out a firm handshake, look him in the eyes, introduce myself. I'm Kai Dries. It's very nice to meet you, Mr. Mr. Whatever. And it kind of, our relationship started there. And that's one thing that I will say with mentorship that is very important is a first impression. Um, when you meet somebody that you can look up to, and you know that they're at a place in their life that you would like to get to, your first impression with them is going to be how they remember you. So how Mark remembered me was by that initial interaction of shaking his hand, firm handshake, look him in the eyes, and introduce myself. Something so simple that gets so overlooked by so many people, especially our age, um, that is just an absolute game changer. And we still talk about it to this day, about our first interaction. And he owns a car museum. And at the time, it was kind of the back end of COVID, and the car museum just wasn't open to the public. It had an odd schedule. It was open on like Saturdays from 12 to 2. It was just open to the public at times that I just did not have access to it because I had to work. So I introduced myself and I said to him, I said, Mister, I am a huge fan of old classic cars. I love the history of American cars, and I understand that you own a collection that isn't too far away from here. Is there any way that I could get out to see them at some time? And he said, "You know what? That's great. What are you doing next Tuesday?" I said, "I work until 2." He said, "I'll pick you up at 2." So the next Tuesday came, and he came and he held up his end of the bargain, came, picked me up right after work, and took me on a personal tour of his collection. And throughout that time, there's a lot of people that put in my position would go throughout that experience kind of dumbfounded, right? Rather than just being your genuine self. Mind you, this guy is, we'll say, wealthy. He's pretty wealthy. He's got it. And that was always an intimidation to so many people around, even in the town, that his the number in his bank account was intimidating for a lot of people. Everybody kind of kisses ass to people like that, and rather than just being genuine and just, we all bleed the same. So here we are. There's me, uh, one of 6 kids from a single mother, just working at this golf course because I need the money, and also I just needed somewhere to go over the summer. But here's me, probably the least wealthy kid on the entire mountain. I was one of the only kids up there without a family up there. Everybody up there, their families come up and visit for summer. And so here's me, probably the poorest person in the on the mountain, going on a personal tour of a museum with the guy that owns the museum, who is probably the wealthiest person on the mountain. So where did this even come from? And the entirety of him showing me the cars, and even on the car rides, we talked it was like talking to anybody. We talked. I told him a little bit about myself, where I come from. He told me a little bit about himself, where he comes from, and it's so odd that we are more alike than we are different. And you'll tend to find that once you start reaching out to all of the people that you view as a staple of success, that you want to learn from them, you'll find out that a lot of the people that you look up to, you're not that different from them. And so we had similar stories. I mean, we were actually we graduated in the same county from high school. He also went to Penn State. I go to Penn State now, so it all kind of was parallel in the moment. And I knew on the ride home from this car museum that, oh, this guy is the exact opposite of what everybody told me about this guy. Everybody told me about this guy everything pertaining to the amount of money and the amount of power that he has in the town. That's everything that everybody talks about. But nobody talks about how great of a guy he is, how generous he is, how easy he is to talk to. Nobody ever nobody ever talked about that because everybody was scared. Everybody had this intimidation factor. That once you block that fear out of, oh, I'm gonna feel less than because he has so much, I'm gonna feel less than. Once you get rid of that attitude, you'll learn so much about where this person comes from, how do they think, what can I take away from their journey that will help me on my journey? What kind of missteps did he take that I can learn from and never take that misstep, because experience outdoes trial and error 10 times over again. So that's what I want to talk about, is just getting in front of somebody that you can look up to and learning from them, and just creating a relationship with somebody that you find is a perfect example of your version of success. All right? So to start out, I want to talk about how mentorship shapes our mindset. Before I had have had mentors, and my first ever real mentor was my golf coach, Dave Heller. And Dave always gave great advice when it came to mindset, and the way to think about myself throughout life, period. Right? Uh, so he was my golf coach. I started golfing in sophomore year of high school, and Mr. Heller could only teach us so much about the golf swing. Right? He could only teach us so much about how to make perfect flush contact, right? How to shape your golf swing. And there got to a point where, around junior to senior year, where I started getting rapidly good at the game, and learning a lot on my own, that he just he kind of got to his limit of swing technique as a golf coach. I mean, he's a history teacher at a high school. He's not going to know everything about golf, but he can give fundamentals to kids. But his teaching of the golf swing was just not the strongest part of his coaching. The strongest part of his coaching was learning how to mentally get through a golf round learning how to carry yourself on the golf course, and all of the etiquette that surrounds the game. That's where he could really teach us some stuff. And through playing golf, I I developed professionally a ton, right? So one of the great pieces of advice that Heller gave me, and this was actually pertaining to the golf swing, but I could translate this to my mindset. And that piece of advice was stay between your feet. Keep your balance between your feet. You don't want to get too far this way, you don't want to get too far that way. Right? You want to stay in between your feet. And I actually took this piece of advice, didn't apply it to the golf swing, but applied it to my mindset, right? So I I've always been a pretty self-reflective kid, and I can reflect on what my current state is. Am I getting a little bit too far ahead of myself? Am I dragging behind on my goals and dreams? Where am I at in this process? And trying to stay between my feet, trying to stay not get too far ahead of myself, but also I can't fall behind of my goals. So staying in between my feet, especially during a golf round, understanding what you're capable of and what you're not capable of has been tremendously helpful in my golf game. If I'm under a tree and I slap it, eh, do I hit it? Do I try to hit a hook stinger or do I just punch it out? Can I hit a hook stinger 8 times out of 10? Probably not at the time. So let's just punch it out. Let's stay in between our feet. You can translate this to real life. When I was working at Eaglesmere for the second summer, I had a moment where I was given a bunch more responsibility, but I didn't I didn't get a raise. I wasn't getting paid anymore, but I was doing so much more for the club. I was bringing in more revenue. So I had to do a little bit of self reflection through that. I'm dragging a little bit behind. I'm not between my feet right now. So I had to negotiate a, a raise. Now, I didn't say I need $10 more an hour. That would have been getting me way above my pay grade. But I also couldn't stay with the same amount of money. So I had to get back to balance. I had to get back to in between my feet. And that's just been something that's been a piece of advice that I carry with me every day, right? So so your mentor can shape your mindset for the rest of your life. They can plant one seed in your head that you can carry with you the rest of your time. And also I could have very well taken that little piece of advice very literally and just put it towards the golf swing. But one part about being a great mentee is really digesting what your mentor says to you and trying to apply all of the advice you get into your real life. Sometimes you'll get advice that doesn't work for you, and that's okay. And that's perfectly okay. But still making the intention to try these things and try to apply some of these things in your life is very important. And I hinted on this a little bit earlier, but experience overcomes trial and error almost every time, right? There's whatever you want to do, there's most likely 99% of the time somebody that already did that thing. There's somebody that took the steps that you want to take to get to where you want to be. There's somebody that has already done this on this in this country, most likely. So reaching out to them and trying to learn from their missteps along the way can save you so much time and anguish just by reaching out to somebody and asking, "Hey, this is what my goals are. This this is where I want to go. I see that this was your path, and I would love, love, love to just learn a little bit about your journey through your career, your journey through getting out of college, and how you started up after getting out of school. Maybe it's somebody that hasn't gone to school and isn't in secondary education, that wants to be somewhere very far. There's somebody that did that. There's definitely somebody that did that. And what I think a lot of people where I think a lot of people fall short is that they have this fear in their head of rejection. They have this fear of, I'm going to ask this person at the top of their industry, they're not going to have time for me. Um, they're going to say no. So what's the point of even reaching out? How are you going to ever know? How are you going to ever know if they would like to help if you never reach out? A closed mouth will never get fed. And just remember that. But I think that everybody, if you do try this, try to reach out to somebody that has done what you want to do. You will be surprised. You'll be more surprised than not the amount that people actually do want to help, because there's so many people that has had this has had mentors to get to where they're at. They're doing the same process, and everybody that had a mentor wants to be a mentor. And it's just a mental thing within yourself to overcome and reach out to some of these people. And you might get a no your first person you reach out to, but there's probably somebody else that did something similar to them. Reach out to them and be relentless, be persistent in reaching out to people. You will be surprised by how many people will accept you in open arms, and you may even get an opportunity out of this thing. With the mentor I talked about first, Mark, through just asking for advice, not asking for anything physical. I didn't I don't want his money. I don't want his things. I don't want anything but his time. His time, I think, is the most valuable thing that he has, because with his time comes his wisdom. And with his wisdom comes lessons that will pay dividends for years, decades, centuries ahead, if I live to 100. But this this entire idea of thinking that people don't have time for you is, I want everybody to kill that now, and just start reaching out to some of these people, because a lot of people are more than happy to help, and you'll be surprised by even the people all the way at the top. They want to help some of the people that are at the bottom, because that's what happened to a lot of these people. They did this thing. They had mentors, they had people to look up to, and they had people outside of their family that could give them advice on what to do. So experience just overcomes trial and error. They can teach you so much that you can just jump ahead. It also gives you an opportunity to expand your network, right? So when you meet one person, you you meet everybody that they know. And not literally. But what's really great about mentorship is that people love to connect other people, especially when you're a mentor. So I'll give you an example. Mr. Heller, my senior year, we went to Eaglesmere to play in a district tournament. And at this district tournament, we got to stay at one of the cottages up in Eaglesmere because Mr. Heller had a really good friend that owns a cottage up there. And his name is Don. And so over the weekend, we got to play a couple rounds of golf with Don and stay at the cottage. We got to have some fun. He has like a shuffleboard table downstairs in the basement, and Dave Heller is disgusting at shuffleboard. He's actually nice. I always try to pull his leg and say, I'm going to cook you. It just never happens. The guy he's got it down. He's got the toss down. But through this weekend, I got to meet Don. Don was a friend of Heller's. And through Heller, which was a mentor but golf coach at the time, I got to meet Don. Don, I actually live at Don's house when I go home now. He turned into another mentor of mine. Don's a man. Don's also now a mentor of mine. So that's how you expand your network. So now I'm close with Don. Guess what comes with that? I get to meet all of Don's friends. And then they become resources for me for if I ever need something. So that's how this mentorship thing works. You meet one person that flowers out into multiple people, and then you meet those multiple people, and then they know different people than each other. So it's this tree branch that all gets started with just one person. And it's crazy how fast you'll notice your network growing. And your network is your net worth. It is who you know in this world, especially nowadays. But that's really one of the biggest and best advantages of having a mentor and having somebody to give you advice, having somebody to introduce you to somebody else, having a person that can say, oh, your goal is, oh, you want to be a lawyer? Dude, I have a couple lawyer friends. One is a criminal law and another one does intellectual property work. You want to talk to them and see, I'll connect you guys. I'll connect you two. That's what this life is about. That's what the name of the game is. Mentorship is truly a cheat code, an absolute cheat code. Why would you ever struggle alone when you can learn in months what your mentor learned in 5 years? Why even put yourself through the ringer if you can learn from someone else? That'll just put you a step ahead of all of your peers. Why not? What can you lose? What are you going to lose if you reach out and try to get a mentor? What are you going to lose? You're not going to have anything you're not going to have anything less than what you had when you started. Promise you that. Promise you that. And sometimes people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm too busy. I'm so sorry. I can't right now is just not the greatest time." And I've gotten that. I've gotten that from people. Some people that I met in the golf industry, they've been great, but some people just can't meet with you every other week for 30 minutes. Some people can't do that. But every single person that has turned me down, that has said, I don't know if I can do this, they've referenced. But this person is amazing at doing this kind of thing. They love it. They live for it. They love to mentor. They love to develop young men and women. Here's their contact. Everybody. I've never been fully turned down by a person. I've only heard, I'm probably not the best person for this, but I know who is. And you will be so surprised by that. Mentorship also fosters your own emotional and spiritual growth, right? So, in learning from all of these people and learning from people that you can look up to, you you really do start to notice how God works in your life. Because every single person that I've met along the way, and every single person that has helped me in any way, shape, or form, was so meant to be there at that exact time of my life. Nothing is coincidence. I didn't meet these people out of pure coincidence. They were put into my life by God. And it's very noticeable when it happens. And a lot of my mentors that I've had came into my life at a time where my faith wasn't a priority in my life. But, excuse me, but I still could see in plain sight that this was God's work. I mean, it was just perfectly timed, and I hope that this message is perfectly timed for you. Actually, I don't even hope. I know that this message is perfectly timed for you. You need to hear it. But now I have mentors even in the spiritual place. Jessica Washington is just the best. She's taken my younger brother under her wing, and introduced him to the Lord. And her her son and my little brother have just been like two peas in the pod for the past couple years. And I have nothing but thanks and appreciation for the Washingtons and everything that they do for my family. But she's even become a great resource for me in terms of spirituality and emotional growth. Just speaking about my journey of faith, speaking about the way that I'm feeling, how I can use the Lord, how the Lord can use me for his purpose that he set for me, and how to handle myself through this journey. I can get all of this advice and information through her. I can get all of that information through my pastor at church, and especially in the spiritual space, in the space of faith. Mentorship is so important. Having somebody to call and talk to about your journey, where you are at, and where you're going is so important in this journey of faith that I hope we are all on. Um, but yeah, mentors. You you need different mentors for different things. Mark's like a really good business mentor. He can teach me a lot about how he navigated his career, because he's at a place where I would want in my life like to be. So he can give me really good advice about career and taking steps toward getting to where I want to in business. But Mark probably isn't going to give me the best advice on how to run a podcast, because he's never done it. Even though he's at the pinnacle of success, where I think the top of the success scale ends, he's there. He's there, but he can't give me advice on this because he hasn't done it. So I have to reach out to somebody else that probably that has a little expertise in this space. So you're going to have different people for different things. And you have to, only you are in charge of building that community around you that will help foster all of the growth that you want for yourself. It's just like that one quote that rings around my mind is that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I've really fostered that kind of mindset. Just saying, I can't do it all alone. I don't want to do it all alone. Who wants to do this life thing alone? It's not fun that way. And yes, you can go fast and you can reach short-term goals really quickly if you just head down, do it alone, don't tell anybody. Yeah, you can do that. That's a path. But if you want to go far and you want to have longevity to all of your goals, you got to do it together. You got to learn from others. That's what we're here to do is learn, teach, and be together. And I wrote down this idea that iron sharpens iron. So, if you're anything like me, I come from a place in which I want to get out. I want to do better. And there's so many examples of this. You don't have to you can grow up in a well-structured good home that is great and you can still want better. You can still I don't think that there's any limit to what better looks like. But if you get to this point of I want better for myself and for my life, are you going to take advice from the people around you that are in the place you want to get out of? Are they going to give you good advice that you can take and build upon? Most likely not. Most likely not. They can teach you some of their shortcomings and give you advice about what what the what they've done wrong to end up in the spot that they're in, and you can take in that advice and you can learn from that. But they're not going to give you advice on how to take the next step because them themselves have never taken the next step. They don't know what it's really like. So having somebody that has taken that next step and having somebody that is in the place that you want to be or you want to once be is so important. So very important. And like for example, my grandmother, she's always said to me, do what your heart desires. If you feel in your heart, in your gut, that you're not in the right place and that you know where the right place is for you, go to it and get there and do that thing. And she didn't teach me that out of experience. She taught me that out of her own kind of shortcomings. She didn't trust her gut at one time and she regretted it. So that. I can learn from that. And I can build upon that. But like nobody in my family can tell me how to get through college. Nobody can give me advice on how to get through college because none of them went. So I got to look elsewhere for that kind of advice. Following me? I think you're following me. And success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. Again, all of these people that you find are successful, I would I would bet that the majority of these people have had people in their lives that they can call mentors that they've learned from. Most people at the top didn't do it alone. And that's just the fact. That's just a fact. The most successful people in the world have mentors. And if the most successful people in the world have mentors and they need guidance, why don't you? Think about that. The most successful people in the world, they all have mentors. They have somebody to talk to for advice. And they're the best at what they do. They're the most successful in their field. And they have people to talk to for advice. If they need advice, then why don't you? Right? So, like, those people, that's a clue that the shit works. And it's very helpful. And it's needed, and it's very necessary for getting to wherever you want to get to. Unless where you want to get to is like manager at McDonald's. I could tell you how to do that. Bust your ass and work there for 15 years. But I hope that all of the people that are listening to this podcast have bigger dreams for themselves than that. And if you don't, I'd stop watching this right now because I don't have anything for you. Harsh, but true. Everyone needs different mentors, though. Everybody needs different mentors. My set of people, my community of mentors, probably isn't going to have the same impact on you. If you had the same exact people around you to talk to, probably going to impact you a lot different. So I would suggest to hone in on who you are. I think that's really what you need a base on before you can even try to reach out to some of these people. Is who are you, right? Not what do you do. What do you do doesn't matter. But who are you? What kind of person are you? And where does that fit in the industry that you want to get into? Where does your person fit into what you want to do? And through asking yourself that question, you can get some information that's like, oh, well, this is who I am. Perfect. After that, try to find people that are in the industry that you want that you can do a little bit of research on to find some similarities. So, for example, I'm super extroverted. I've done some public speaking in my life. I love to speak publicly. So when I ask myself, who am I think of somebody that can talk to anybody, somebody that thinks that a microphone and a crowd fears me rather than the other way around. I think that I'm somebody that can influence through the means of my voice. That's a big part of who I am, right? So when I'm looking for a mentor, I want to look for somebody just like that, that has some experience, that has done some public speaking, that I can research and say in an email, hello, Mr. Snuffleupagus. My name is Kydris. I am a third year here at Penn State. I am super interested in any sort of public speaking, and I would just love to have 15 to 20 minutes of your time anytime next week just to talk about some of your experience in public speaking and and I would just love some advice on how to get to the next step of my public speaking journey. Bam. It's not hard to find an email nowadays. You got this great thing called the internet that you can just search people's name up. I could look best public speakers in America. It'll spit out a ton of different names. You're not going to know any of these names, but you can look at each bio, and you can go on their Instagram. You can go on their social media and see the person that they show to the world. If your goals and who you are aligns with that person, that's a perfect person for you to reach out to and get some advice. So everybody's going to need different mentors, and it's really up to you to do some evaluation of yourself to find people that best reflect what you want out of life. And it's going to be different for everybody. Your path is going to be different than mine different from yours. That's okay. That's the whole point of life. And what's really great about this mentorship thing is that if you just gain a mentor in public speaking. And no, say I just got the mentor of public speaking, right? And he's my mentor. He's been teaching me. We've been meeting for 2 months now. We're pretty comfortable with each other. We give each other calls on the phone, and then we talk consistently. And I meet a friend. I meet a friend in my public speaking class, and he too is very interested in finding a mentor for this. Guess what? Guess what I can do? Guess what I can do? I can introduce him to my mentor. No way. No way. I can help somebody else out just from me having somebody to look up to. How selfish of it would it be if I kept it all to myself? Right? And that's really my favorite. That's my favorite part about this mentorship thing isn't the learning part. It's getting to teach all that I've learned and getting to connect other people, getting to connect friends to mentors, getting to connect people together so that they can grow outside of my relationship with them. But that's really that's that's the fun part for me is getting to connect people together. That's my favorite thing in the world. Um, where I derive energy from really is just helping other folks. Excuse me. But yeah, it's really great to put other people on. That's just my bread and butter of life, if you would. So to close out this episode, I want to leave with one thought, one last thought, and that's that mentorship creates a legacy for you, right? So there's this pattern that is very prominent in that space, which is mentorship. That once a mentee, so I'm at the moment more of a mentee than I am a mentor, because I'm the person taking in the advice. But one of my everlasting goals in the future is to become a mentor for somebody that's like me. So this thing it's a repeating cycle, and going back to talking about how a lot of people that are successful and very successful at the top, they all have mentors. They want to repeat that cycle of being a mentor and passing on their knowledge to the next person. And it creates this legacy of mentorship. So, Mark had a mentor growing up. And some of the lessons that he learned from his mentor, he can teach me. And then he can tack on some things of his own that he can teach me. So now I have kind of two different generations of advice. Now, I can even go ahead and teach some people what I learned from Mark. So now there's three generations of advice if I'm passing it down to a mentee. Now he grows up and he's successful, and then he in turn becomes a mentor and he teaches another person. Now he has four generations of advice from industry leaders and people that he can look up to. And it's just this legacy of passing down of knowledge and the passing down of experience to get the next generation a step ahead of where we were at the time, that really shapes and structures the innovation in this country, the innovation in this world, and the development of technology, the development of pretty much anything can be improved through the legacy of mentorship. And that's just really a kind of a recap of what mentorship really means. And that's just the passing down of knowledge to the next generation to try and fuel a faster development and innovation in whatever space you're in. So that's really all that I have on mentorship, and I hope that you guys can take something in from this podcast. This is just something that I hold so near and dear to my heart. And if any of you want any advice on kind of how to take that first step to getting to being a mentee or finding a mentor, I am always willing to help anybody when it comes to that, because I think it's very important. So if you don't have my number, if you don't have any way to contact me, go on Instagram, the Kydrees Burks Pod on Instagram. Shoot me a DM, and I would love to connect and get something going. But if not, thanks for listening to another episode of the podcast. I apologize again that I didn't get this out on Sunday, but it's out now, and this has been great. I hope you guys loved the introduction, but maybe we'll do that again. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you on Wednesday.